today we are talking to Sam Flanagan. You prefer Sam, is that right?
Sam's fine, yeah.
Good, okay. So before we talk a little bit about the work you do and the kind of people that you deal with, can you give us just a little bit of background about you and kind of your life up to this point and how you got into this kind of work?
Yeah, I mean, I got into counselling, therapy, coaching fairly late on, really. You know, I was on my master's in psychotherapy and counselling with people half my age. But I think you know, initially I did a degree in creative writing, and then life happened. Lots of life happened, and and I realised that actually I wanted a bit of a career change, and I seem to be quite good at sort of listening to people and empathising and being compassionate. And I thought I'll give counselling a go and see what that brings. And actually loved it. It felt like it fitted me. I fitted it, and so I've been doing that ever since. And then I went into health and nutrition, because I think partly from my own menopausal journey and trying to understand what was going on in my body. So I decided I was doing a health and nutrition diploma, and I realised also that I can integrate the two because we are holistic, we are whole beings. And so, you know, I talk to my clients about what's going on with their mental health, but also how they can help their own mental health through diet, exercise, sleep. You know, it's so important, all of those things as well. We're not just sort of separate parts, we are whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you find, I mean, that's an interesting kind of jump. Did you find the creative writing part of any use when you kind of came into this later, the kind of the storytelling? And
absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've always used the writing element for my blogs and articles. I have a lot of articles published on the counselling directory, and I find that sort of brings in, you know, the clients that, you know, if we're talking about niching down, if something's particularly cropping up in my business, in private practice, over and over again, I think, oh well, I'll write an article about that. So you know, and that allows me also to explore deeper the issues that are coming up. So I you know, I gain more information as well. So it's been used in that way, which I know is non-fiction, but I use what we call vignettes, you know. So I'll sort of form characters with issues, and so I sort of do combine the two. So I'm quite creative within it, and then giving the information as well.
Okay. So if I came to you as a kind of potential new client, and I said to you, what kind of coach or counsellor are you? What would you say to me?
I would say that I work with a range of issues. I mean, primarily I went into trauma and addiction. So, you know, I'll always look at attachment. So where, you know, what the person's background, what it was like for them growing up as kids. Because obviously we're formed from our childhood, aren't we, as well, you know, all of the beliefs that we take on then. But I would say that I work with self-worth, confidence, sort of a whole range, really, because I think when people they say I've got relationship / trust issues, well, we start looking at where that comes from. People gain way more knowledge than they realize, because they say I've got trust issues and they think it's just right now in the present. But when we start looking back, where's it coming from? So I would say that I sort of offer a range of services to people. We can always explore together different issues, But
Do
yeah,
you find that? Sorry, do you find that people are kind of they're beginning to understand more the concept of a kind of holistic approach to these things? That they're understanding that, you know, the way your body is affects your mind, and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at the person as a whole, that where they, you know, that growing up, what it was like for them, you know, because obviously trauma as well is held in the body. So, you know, they might think, well, I've got all of these, say, gut issues, for instance, and I don't quite know why, you know, and we might look at, well, what's been happening for you recently, what's been happening for you in the past. You know, how anxious are you? Anxiety can affect the gut massively, and then in turn that can lead to anxiety and depression, because, you know, hormones in the guts are affected, and things like serotonin, which has an effect on the mental well-being. So yeah, looking holistically is definitely the best approach. We can't take any issue in isolation, I don't think.
And because that's not always been the way, has it? I mean, people have kind of very much kind of split the two up. I mean, do you kind of go down the route of, do you go as far as kind of offering nutritional advice, and as well as kind of the more kind of coaching, counselling style things, or?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yes. I'm not a nutritionist, but I will offer nutrition advice, you know, looking at diet. You know, there's quite a lot in the media at the moment about processed foods and how bad, you know, they are for us. I mean, I don't know why it's only just in the media, but it seems to have really be a big thing at the moment. But, you know, all of that is, if we're not feeding our bodies in a healthy way, and particularly, like I say, our gut, then our minds are certainly going to be affected. The way we feel about ourselves, exhaustion, fatigue, we're not going to feel our best self. So I will offer, you know, nutrition advice as well, but I always take the person individually. It's not a one approach for all. It's looking at that individual person, no matter what the issues are, whether it's you know, a mental health issue, or, like I say, a more holistic approach for that individual.
Yeah, and these things always have a kind of knock-on effect. Then someone reads an article about how bad processed foods are for you, and then they immediately start feeling guilty about eating processed food.
Absolutely, yeah. Or they might come, you know, I'm feeling really fatigued all the time. I don't quite know what's going on. You know, I want to start exercising. Or I'm not really sleeping very well. My anxiety is through the roof. Well, of course, it's all connected, isn't it? It's not just one thing. Yeah.
So, what are the kind of the bulk of the people that you see? Are they kind of have similar kinds of issues, similar kind of people, or is it a very wide range?
It's fairly wide range. I mean, I also work for BetterHelp, which I think is, you know, quite widely promoted as well. So I'll have a range of clients. I do get more women than men, but I'll get men as well. There's a lot of confidence issues. There's a lot of boundary issues, relationship issues. I would say that's, you know, we can have say a woman coming with boundary issues to do with her mother, for instance, you know, and that's affecting her anxiety, her self-worth, her confidence. So she might not realize it's a boundary issue, but as soon as we start looking at, well, what do you do for yourself, you know, and she realizes actually she's a people pleaser, and that's also affecting her physical health because she's not really looking after herself, you know. So it's a sort of holistic kind of approach. So it's that kind of, probably more down that kind of route that, you know, I get a lot more clients that I'm knowledgeable about, because I get a lot of those clients as well.
Yeah. And do you find a lot of people, because I live in France and they're very backward about, at the moment, about kind of the menopause and the effect it has? I mean, they kind of almost don't really believe that it exists in a lot of places. And that seems to be much more of a kind of an open conversation that's coming out in the UK. Do you find that that's coming increasingly common amongst your clients? Is that something they want to talk about? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I think people are starting to see the connection. You know, sort of women used to just say, well, it was never an issue, we just got on with it. But okay, well, we are all just getting on with it, but you know, we can do things to help ourselves as well. We don't have to suffer. But I think definitely, you know, with Davina McCall, I think Menopausing was her book. You know, sort of celebrities talking about menopause. It's in the media a lot. So I think women are starting to make that connection. And when I say people, I'm talking about husbands as well, you know, partners. The men in the family are all sort of starting to sort of realize as well that it's not just these women in their hormones with the rolling eyes. You know, there's a lot more going on, and we do suffer. It is awful for women of a certain age, and for many years as well.
And it's just been kind of hidden in the shadows for so long, hasn't it, really?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think also, yeah, talking about it, getting it out there, getting the help, looking at the woman as a holistic approach. What can you do for yourself in terms of cutting out caffeine, alcohol, exercise, you know, diet, all of those things. Of course, we can do all those things, and sometimes we just need to go and look at different HRTs that we could use. There's a lot of different ones out there, you know, which is something I never realized. You know, I was just given one patch, which didn't work for me. And then I suffered again for a few more years, and until I realized that there was a lot more different types of HRT, you know. So it's just getting that message out there to women, and saying you can help yourself. There's a lot that we can do to help ourselves.
Yeah, and just getting people to kind of start that conversation. That's the kind of the key thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, that's brilliant. So the question we kind of ask everyone is, knowing what you kind of know now on the kind of the journey that you've been on to get to where you are, if you weren't doing this, you weren't doing this kind of job, what do you think you would be doing instead?
I think I'd be writing that novel. I think one day
I've been sitting in the office for 20 years.
I think so creative writing is definitely something that I'm getting back into now. I'm finding that I've got a bit more time. So I may well one day write that novel that's been brewing for 30 years.
And you're allowed to say what it's about, or is that jinxing it?
Oh, well, I'm not entirely sure what it's about myself yet. but it will come.
And do you find that kind of writing process, is that quite cathartic? Do you think it kind of helps you get out, because it's quite stressful doing the job you're doing? You know?
Absolutely, for sure it is. And also, you know, therapists quite often come to the work because of their own sometimes traumatic backgrounds, and you know, so there's so much inside of my head, so many different stories and my own journey, you know, and so you know, there's a lot that can be used for sure. There's a lot of information there.
No, there's a lot of source material for a book, isn't there? Certainly.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. That's very interesting. That's very useful.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.